Hi everybody, welcome to the latest edition of Over Coffee. Hot. Today I'd like to start with US Patent 365-3474. It was filed in 1970, approved in 1972, and it is the patent for wheeled luggage. Now luggage had been around a long time and wheels had been around a long time, but it wasn't until 1970 that someone put them together. And now you wouldn't think of walking through the airport lugging around a heavy bag. Wheeled luggage is everywhere. It's globally accepted. Next, I'd like to talk to you about Paul Brown. Now, Paul Brown was an inventor working on a valve. And the valve specifically he was working on was around the dispersion of shampoo. The idea was he was studying an element of liquids called thixotropy. Now, thixotropy says that when a gel is agitated, it will turn to liquid. The problem is he was trying to control the flow of that agitated liquid out of the shampoo container. What he developed was a cap that you're familiar with now, specifically with ketchup. It's the valve cap, where we think we're turning the bottle upside down when it's really right side up, and that the use of this valve allows gravity to drain it, and it stops us from the consistent pounding on a ketchup bottle to try to get the ketchup out, or releasing it with a knife through, never knowing how much will flow out. These two elements, these two inventions are what we call the duh factor. They appear blatantly obvious to us, and we marvel at how long it took us to figure it out. You see, the duh factor is about the obvious, and that when faced with the obvious, we discount its value. We say, I knew that. It's not worthy of application. But if you think about it, companies are pursuing best practices harder and stronger as a strategy than ever before. Best practices are about the duh factor. What a best practice does is it looks for what is the obvious that's being done by the company within its own teamwork, its own framework, its own teams, that allows that to be applied around the company. At Creative Ventures, we call this repeatable, successful acts. And for the first time, we've been hired by a client to apply our process of pattern recognition internally to their company so they can discover their own repeatable, successful acts. And what they're looking for, and at the end it always stuns clients, is they'll say, well, that's so obvious. Why didn't we know that? It's not about knowing it. It's not about people all around the planet knowing what obviously they should be doing. Successful companies apply the obvious. They don't ignore it. They don't look for reasons that it's so obvious that it couldn't be of value. Instead, what they do is they grab it. They hold on to it. They look for ways to leverage it beyond its specific place in time and space. By doing this, the obvious becomes a strategic tool. And the more people that do the obvious, those things that are highly successful, the better the company is at progressing towards its goals. So you may think that getting out of the office if you're a sales professional is like a duh factor, but the reality is only 7% of salespeople get out of the office. That means the balance of them are sitting there, not face-to-face with their customer. That makes them the average salesperson. But the obvious tells you to be a superior salesperson, you need to get out of the obvious. You need to put yourself into a framework that gets you in front of the customer. And that's as obvious as anything can be in sales, yet you'll find it's at a 7% factor in sales forces. So here's the deal. Discover those patterns that everybody is doing within your company. Those obvious things. Identify them, leverage them, and hold people accountable to the obvious. And the duh factor will instead be the success factor for you. Thanks. Look forward to seeing you next month on Over Coffee.